Here we are in the land of retirement. We made it. And the first few months are great. Slow mornings, no schedule, no pressure. Maybe we took that dream trip to Europe and life feels great. And then one morning we wake up and the house feels a little too quiet. The days are kind of dragging and we're feeling kind of restless and maybe even a little depressed. We start asking ourselves these big, scary questions like, what am I going to do with every day for the rest of my life? Did I retire too soon? How am I going to fill my days? And who am I now? And if that sounds like you, here's some really good news. You are not broken. You're not alone. And this is not permanent. What we're experiencing is rarely talked about, but very real. Many retirees experience this in their first few months of retirement, and it's something that I call a retirement recalibration phase. And so today, we're going to shine the light on this very real experience. And we'll look at three things: why a retirement recalibration is necessary, what it looks like, the signs that you're going through this recalibration stage, and how to move through this recalibration without feeling so lost. Understanding this phase and learning to work with it instead of fighting against it can really feel like putting some solid ground under what could feel like quicksand.
Hi there, I'm Denise. I started this fully alive journey after winning a pretty tough battle with cancer. I came away with a whole new perspective and appreciation for life. Now, as I'm leaning into retirement, I'm discovering and sharing practical ways to live a fully alive life for many years to come.
Whether we realize it or not, retirement wasn't just the end of a job. It's the end of a whole system that kind of quietly ran in the background of our lives and that added structure. It dictated our schedules, some of our priorities, had a big influence on our identity, gave us purpose and really a sense of community. And when all that disappears, our bodies, our emotions, our relationships all have to readjust, recalibrate. And for a while, our rhythms, our systems can kind of feel out of sync. So let's take a quick look at these things that changed and maybe without us even realizing it. So first up is our identity. You think about when you meet someone and they ask, well, what do you do? And that's usually your job. And so, whether we like it or not, our identity can really be strongly influenced by the job that we have. And when that's gone, we feel a little adrift. Next is our beliefs about productivity. For decades, what we produced, our output in that 40-hour work week, really had a lot of ties to our value and our self-worth. And when that goes away, it can leave a pretty big hole. Up next is our time. At work, when we had a job, we were told when to get up, when to go to work, what our days would look like, when a meeting was, where to be, and when to be there. And when that goes away, we can feel a little untethered, directionless, if you would. Next are those social shifts, being at work and engaging and working on a project and sharing ideas. That was a lot of social engagement that was just baked in to our lives. And then finally, a nervous system adjustment, one we don't always think about. But, those years of a high stress environment, of pressure and deadlines, those things have an effect on us physically. Cortisol buildup is one of those things. And so when we retire, our bodies physically need to recalibrate. Even after we retire, it's normal to notice that our mind and our body and our emotions may still be trying to run off of that old work-based calibration system. One of the first signs, at least that showed up in my life, was a busyness. A busy just to be busy. You're maybe cleaning a room that doesn't really need to be cleaned. You're reorganizing a cupboard that was probably just fine. But being busy feels familiar, feels comfortable. And a day that is a little stiller and not so filled with productivity, can feel unsettling and even wrong. Another sign is calendar overload. You say yes to everything. You're looking for things to keep you busy. This is going to be great, and you fill up your calendar and you think, what have I done? Please, someone cancel on me. This is incredibly common in new retirees. Studies show that many new retirees just fill up their life to the same stress level that they had at work and then quickly regret it. And like I said, your body speaks up too, that fatigue. And sometimes you'll find that you get sick easier soon after retiring. You feel like a nap is necessary now. A friend of mine who had retired from a high pressure job shared that she had spent almost her whole first year just resting, taking naps, keeping her activity low. Her body was just finally unwinding from decades of a high demand, constant activity life. And then decision fatigue. This is kind of odd, but our true north, our compass has changed. And trying to make big decisions just feels overwhelming at times. And that's why many experts recommend that you delay any major decisions in the first 6 to 12 months, maybe even longer. And it's not because we forgot how to think, but because clarity comes after we've recalibrated to this new life. We find a new compass and framework that help us make those good decisions. And let me just say this out loud. These are not problems to fix. This is just a recalibration of an old system and moving into a new system. So all of these can be signs of a nervous system, a emotional, a mental, a purpose, an identity shift, and that your internal calibration is needing to adjust. And this is important. Recalibration doesn't start with doing more. It starts with doing something that can be surprisingly difficult, giving ourselves permission to pause, to step back, to readjust before we start moving forward again. I saw this illustrated very clearly for me this summer when we had a large oak tree removed from our backyard. And that tree that shaped everything, the shade, the sunlight, what could thrive and survive in that environment, it was a focal point of the backyard, much like our full-time job can be a big part of our lives. And then it's removed and it feels uncomfortably bare. My first instinct was to plant something, anything. How can we get back to a sense of normal? But because the environment had really fundamentally changed, had I rushed into something, nothing would have thrived. So I gave myself permission to pause, to not have to make anything happen right away. What I did was I took a lawn chair and for days, weeks, and even several months, just moved that lawn chair around the backyard, seeing where the light would hit and dreaming and thinking of what could be in that space. And part of that was really kind of getting comfortable with that tree no longer being there. And so that pause wasn't inactivity. It was really kind of a purposeful recalibration, giving the space time to reveal what needed to be there next. And retirement can work the same way. Without this pause, without taking time to recalibrate our lives to this new environment, there's a risk that we try to build off of that old structure. And that just brings frustration and stress and really can drag out this recalibration stage. So how do we cooperate with this recalibration so that we don't drag out this period? Well, there's a few things that we can just kind of be mindful of and intentional about. And the first is just embracing that beautiful bare, letting there be white space in your life. Give yourself permission to pause and get comfortable with this new space before you start trying to fill it with too many things. Schedule time to sit at a coffee shop and just people watch, or lay in the hammock and watch the world go by. The next is delay major commitments. Keep them to small decisions. Instead of selling the house and everything you own and relocating to some country abroad, maybe just take a month vacation there, maybe 3 months. Next is to shift our mindset from a productivity to more of an observation mindset. Journal and notice the things that bring life and that energize you, and then the things that drain you. This is a new environment. You need to see what fits, what feels like you now, not what fit in your 9 to 5 life. And then add some, gentle structure. Maybe a morning coffee, an afternoon nap, and maybe an evening walk. We all need a little bit of structure, but keep it very flexible so it doesn't feel too rigid or heavy. And then slowly start engaging in other things when it feels good and right. Maybe invite the family over for Sunday dinner, or sign up for a class, a 3-month tennis lesson or painting class. Slow, easy, nothing too big. And then notice what feels good and what's draining you. And then finally, be kind to yourself. Be gentle to yourself. This is just a period of time. This won't last forever, but it's an important period. Let yourself embrace the beautiful bear and step back and begin to reimagine a different kind of life, calibrated differently. This isn't wasted time. It's an opportunity to reset and then create a retirement life that feels alive and right for you. So that uncomfortable, what have I done? Don't panic. It's normal and it's temporary. And as we've seen, it's actually very necessary. It's your mind and your body and your emotions recalibrating to your new environment so that you can move forward with confidence. It's not a problem that needs to be fixed. It's embracing the beautiful bear. It's giving yourself permission to pause and step back and then dream about what's ahead. In my backyard recalibration, it looked like just sitting in the yard, thinking, feeling the space, dreaming a little bit, and then the next steps began to reveal themselves. I'd love to hear what your recalibration is looking like. Drop a comment below. And you might be interested in this video that I talked about letting go and then stepping into this beautiful bear. It's linked here. If this video was helpful, give it a like, subscribe, ring the bell so you don't miss my next video on living our fully alive retirement lives.